He always dreamed of becoming a fighter pilot. He started his career working at McDonald's, and eventually, he became one of the youngest billionaires of his generation. Today, we're diving into the story of a modern-day visionary, an early internet trailblazer, and a staunch Bitcoin advocate. Some say he's destined to be either one of the most brilliant investors in history or the biggest fool. There probably won't be any middle ground. For those who might have guessed, the Gia Crypto team is back, and today we're talking about Michael Saylor, co-founder and CEO of MicroStrategy. You also might have guessed that it's Samantha here, and I'm really looking forward to giving you another info-packed video to get you on board and up to speed about the crypto revolution. So getting back to Michael Saylor, we'll share how he built his fortune by getting the jump on the internet way back in the 80s, and why he might still be ahead of the curve in understanding Bitcoin. Let's get started. Michael Saylor was born in 1965 in Lincoln, Nebraska. As a son of an Air Force master sergeant, he spent his childhood moving between various U.S. military bases, traveling the world. He spent most of his time watching planes take off, land, and crisscross the skies. Fascinated by science fiction, he dreamt of becoming an astronaut. Gifted with a brilliant mind, he excelled in school, consistently ranking among the top students of his class. His academic prowess was highlighted by his exceptional score on the SAT, scoring 1540 out of 1,600 points. Thanks to his outstanding results, he was awarded a scholarship from the U.S. Air Force. Michael chose to attend the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology, more commonly known as MIT. There he earned dual degrees in aeronautics and astronautics, as well as in science, technology, and society, laying the groundwork for his remarkable future trajectory. It was during this time that he met Sanju K. Bansal, who would later become his business partner at MicroStrategy, but more on that later. After finishing his studies, Michael still harbored his dream of becoming a fighter pilot in the Air Force. However, life had other plans for him. During a routine medical exam, he discovered he had a heart murmur, effectively shattering his dreams of becoming a fighter pilot. In 1988, less than a year after graduating from MIT, he joined DuPont, a multinational chemical company, as a software consultant. Overqualified for his position and frequently bored, Saylor soon began contemplating starting his own business. However, during his first 12 months at the company, Michael impressed everyone so much that he convinced DuPont's executives to allocate him $250,000, a dedicated office, and even a personal phone. All this was to allow him to launch his own projects alongside his role at DuPont. During this time, his friend Sanju Bansal had also joined him, and together they began building what would become MicroStrategy, with DuPont acting somewhat like their first unofficial investor. Things moved quickly from there. MicroStrategy was officially founded in 1989, and 3 years later, in 1991, the company launched its first product, a data mining software. Remember, I mentioned in the intro that Saylor initially started working at McDonald's. Well, that's not quite correct. In reality, McDonald's was the very first major client MicroStrategy signed, securing a contract worth $10 billion. McDonald's leaders quickly realized that MicroStrategy's solutions and tools would enable them to collect, manage, and analyze their sales data, significantly boosting the company's revenue. This marked the beginning of business intelligence and data mining. A small revolution here was underway. Experts might point out that the first BIs date back to the 1980s, and MicroStrategy wasn't the only company offering such services. That's absolutely correct. Companies like IBM, Oracle, SAS, and Hyperion had all started launching their software. But MicroStrategy distinguished itself through the efficiency and performance of its models. MicroStrategy's mantra was, "We live in a world of ignorance, and our mission is to remedy that." Today, companies around the world are vying for their solutions. Brands like Nike, The North Face, US Postal Service, 21st Century Fox, and many others. Over 900 companies now use their products. Just like Bill Gates' mission at Microsoft wasn't just about selling software, but rather ensuring a computer on every desk, MicroStrategy's mission is somewhat to place a crystal ball on every workstation, making information available everywhere at any time and to anyone. Magic, fantasy, technology. Saylor loves this triad so much, he featured a quote from Arthur C. Clarke on the back of the company's prospectus. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Realize this, MicroStrategy was founded in 1989. At that time, the internet was still in its infancy. In 1989, there were no more than 100,000 machines connected to the network. And that's why Saylor is often referred to as a visionary. He saw the potential of the internet, positioned himself on it, and exploited its power before anyone else. To give you another example of his ability to see the potential in new technologies, in the 1990s, he bought up every domain name he can get his hands on. He spent over $2 million acquiring a plethora of references like strategy.com, block.com, wisdom.com, speaker.com, hope.com, and so on. Everyone thought he was crazy, but he was convinced that these web spaces would one day be as valuable as a plot of land in Manhattan. Owning a shop on New York's Fifth Avenue or having a website like shoe.com would be equally important. The world was accelerating its transition into the digital era, and he was fully aware of it. For your information, he made over $100 million by gradually selling these domain names to companies that desperately needed them. The biggest deal was in 2019, $30 million for voice.com. Just as a side note, it's interesting to note that hope.com, which we just mentioned, is still owned by Michael Saylor and redirects its page dedicated to Bitcoin. Super classy move. MicroStrategy quickly became one of the fastest growing software companies in history. During the 90s, MicroStrategy doubled its revenue every year on average. By 2000, the company was valued at around $11 billion, employed nearly 1,800 people, and announced its 16th consecutive quarter of growth, posting a profit of $3.8 million. This success made Saylor one of the youngest billionaires in the US at age 35. Yet, at the same time, Michael was still living in an ordinary old house and driving a dented Lexus. In an article from the Washington Post, we learned that on Friday, March 17, 2000, Michael boarded a plane to return to the US from Europe. When he landed, he learned that MicroStrategy's stock had hit a new high. He had earned over $1 billion in just a few hours. But as the saying goes, money doesn't grow on trees, and trees don't grow in the sky. By the late 90s, most tech companies, especially those related to the internet, had stock valuations completely disconnected from their financial reality. MicroStrategy was clearly among them. With the pressure of rising interest rates, the bubble eventually burst, starting in March 2000, spreading to all stock markets and causing a global economic recession. MicroStrategy's stock plummeted more than 60% in a few hours, dropping from $226 to $86. On that day, Michael Saylor saw his fortune decrease by $6 billion, making him one of the individuals to have lost the most money in such a short time. Within about 15 days, his fortune had diminished by approximately $10 billion. As you might have guessed, though, this didn't stop Michael. MicroStrategy survived and is doing very well today. They recently posted their Q3 2023 results, recording a gross profit of over $100 million, an increase from last year. It's important to understand that MicroStrategy, before being a Bitcoin hedge fund, is a highly profitable company with a business model based on selling products and services with almost 80% gross margin. Keep that in mind as we proceed here, because MicroStrategy has a rich person's problem. They're sitting on a mountain of cash. But let's move on. In 2012, Saylor published a book, The Mobile Wave: How Mobile Intelligence Will Change Everything. In it, he discusses an emerging new wave, anticipating the revolutionary impact of mobile technologies. Saylor enthusiastically explores how smartphones and tablets are radically transforming our lifestyle, work, and access to information. This book is an inspiration for anyone interested in the future of technology and its potential to positively shape our world. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend it. It adds a lot of depth and credibility to his current analysis of Bitcoin. The guy is smart. I mean, really, really smart. Also, if you're a fan of our videos, hit the subscribe button now. It's important to note that before becoming an unwavering supporter of Satoshi Nakamoto's invention, Saylor was initially a critic, or at least somewhat skeptical. In 2013, he predicted on Twitter, the now X, the imminent demise of Nakamoto's invention, especially due to the lack of pro-Bitcoin personalities. He believed that this new tool would meet the same fate as online casinos. It was only a matter of time before Bitcoin would be banned by governments. For a bit of context, Satoshi Nakamoto himself doubted his invention until the protocol was finalized, and almost no one on the forum where Bitcoin was shared in 2009 believed in it initially. Bitcoin then appeared simply as another doomed attempt to solve a Byzantine general's problem. It seemed too good to be true. However, upon delving deeper into the subject, Michael Saylor too changed his mind. He observed the ecosystem's development, saw Bitcoin rise from its ashes cycle after cycle, and despite Chinese bans, internal civil wars, and major crises within the ecosystem, Bitcoin was like a freight train at full speed that would be super difficult to stop. Fundamentally anti-fragile, Bitcoin fed off the challenges it faced year after year, becoming more efficient and more secure. Michael now explains that he considers Bitcoin to be the greatest opportunity of his life. Remember, he's already ridden the waves of the internet, smartphones, and then social networks. And yet, according to him, Bitcoin tops all of that. The potential of this new technological revolution is even more significant. It touches the very lifeblood of the economy. In his view, Satoshi Nakamoto's invention is causing a profound revolution at the heart of a technology used by humanity for several millennia. Gold, the barbarous relic, as Keynes called it, is about to be supplanted, just as candles were by light bulbs or horses by cars. Here are some of Michael Saylor's best punchlines regarding Bitcoin. Bitcoin represents a virtual bank in cyberspace, operated by an incorruptible software, offering a global, affordable, simple, and secure savings account to billions of people who have neither the capacity nor the desire to manage their own hedge funds. Or, Google is the result of pooling informational energy on a software network, a concept widely understood. On the other hand, Bitcoin is a result of pooling monetary energy on a software network, a concept that few people manage to grasp. And sometimes he goes into poetic flights, like Satoshi lit a fire in cyberspace. While the fearful retreat and the careless dance, the faithful stoke the flame and feed the dream of a world bathed in the warm glow of cyber light. Or something along the lines of, Bitcoin can be seen as a swarm of cyber hornets, devoted to the goddess of wisdom, feeding on the flame of truth, gaining intelligence, speed, and power, exponentially behind a wall of encrypted energy. For him, Bitcoin is somewhere between invention and discovery. It's a complex mix of digital scarcity, absolute monetary sovereignty, and technological genius to implement it all. There cannot be another Bitcoin. He often talks about the environment and the unique context present at the time of Bitcoin's creation. These circumstances can never be replicated. This is what we refer to as the path dependence factor, or dependence on the path taken. It's a fundamental concept to consider when evaluating the likelihood of a new Bitcoin. A simple analogy can help to illustrate this point. If Bitcoin were a dinosaur, it would be a T-Rex, predator numero uno. In 2009, it hatched from its egg and began to grow. It was alone, ignored by all. At that time, nobody was interested in cryptocurrencies. So it had time to grow at its own pace, to evolve, to learn, to suffer injuries, and to heal from them. 12 years later, it dominates the ecosystem, omnipotent and practically impossible to kill. That's why it's so important to properly store your Bitcoin. You have digital gold in your hands. Move it off the exchanges. You'll really understand the power of these new technologies when you eliminate intermediaries and minimize counterparty risks as much as possible. Mt. Gox, Bitcoinica, BlockFi, Celsius, FTX, history repeats itself cycle after cycle. In August 2020, when Bitcoin was hovering around $10,000 for several months, Saylor decided to make a decisive shift in his company's financial strategy. MicroStrategy would begin to convert part of its treasury into crypto. At that time, MicroStrategy acquired about $250 million worth of Bitcoin. He then explained that this decision stemmed from his deep conviction that Bitcoin, as the most widely adopted crypto globally, represents a robust store of value and especially attractive investment asset, with a long-term growth potential far exceeding that of simply holding cash, which melts away like the snow in the sun due to inflation. Saylor went even further. According to him, Bitcoin is simply a superior store of value to any other asset. For Saylor, Bitcoin, with its decentralized nature and limited supply, embodies the future of value reserves, far surpassing traditional assets like gold or real estate. These statements and MicroStrategy's Bitcoin acquisition had a bombshell effect within the crypto ecosystem, and the shockwave spread to traditional finance. For some, this was the spark that triggered the last bull run. Since that announcement in August 2020, Michael continues to regularly communicate about the new Bitcoin purchases made by MicroStrategy. As of writing the script, the company holds about 158,400 Bitcoin, acquired at an average price of about $30,000 each, which equates to a treasure estimated at over $4 billion at the current exchange rate. So far, the bet has been quite successful. MicroStrategy's stock has increased by 130%, significantly outperforming the NASDAQ, to say the least. So yeah, Bitcoin is still not regulated in the US, but big players can buy shares of MicroStrategy, which hold a large portion of its treasury in Bitcoin. This offers them indirect exposure, and some haven't missed out on this opportunity. BlackRock, for instance, now holds 8% of the company. However, some voices are raising concerns about the accumulation of Bitcoin in the reserves of companies like MicroStrategy. Similar to those who worry about the entry of BlackRock and ETFs and the potential impact on the decentralization of the network. In short, there are fears that entities holding large amounts of Bitcoin could exert unilateral control over the future direction of this technology. Here at GA Crypto, we're not overly concerned. Bitcoin relies on an extremely powerful self-defense mechanism based on the economic interests of all its users. And by that, I mean not only individuals and merchants, but also miners, exchange platforms, developers, and all companies in the sector. That's a lot of stakeholders. A single company, no matter how significant, cannot unilaterally change the code of Bitcoin. Of course, they can modify it, but they would create their own version of Bitcoin on their own network. Those who wish to follow will. Bitcoin is not coercive. It's based on the voluntary participation and free cooperation of individuals. If you don't like it and Bitcoin isn't to your taste, you simply leave the network. It's as simple as that. Anyway, it also amuses me to see the difference in pedigree between the pro and anti-Bitcoin camps. On one side, you have, for example, the think tank directors, university professors in economics, and journalists, mostly on the left, who spend a great deal of their time discussing theory. On the other side, you have visionaries and productive billionaires like Druckenmiller, the Winklevoss twins, Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk, or Michael Saylor, whom we discussed today. Let us know in the comments which personality you would like us to choose for a future video.